Every empire eventually faces its reckoning. When the old systems rot from within, a reset begins. Not with explosions or revolutions, but with spreadsheets, screens, and silent signatures. The first great reset wasn't an event. It was a process and a slow unraveling of the old economic order, disguised as progress. For a century, the world's power flowed through a single system, the US dollar. It became the bloodstream of global trade, the language of debt, and the weapon of dominance. But like every empire before it, its strength became its weakness. The cost of control grew heavier, the illusion of stability thinner. The world had been running on borrowed time and borrowed money. Then came the shocks: collapsing banks, global debt spiraling past reason, markets run by machines, currencies devalued by endless printing. The illusion of infinite growth met the math of reality. The dollar was no longer a tool of trade, it was a trap of dependence. And when the trap began to fail, the architects of power prepared the next phase, the digital dollar empire. They call it modernization, efficiency, financial innovation. But beneath the slogans lies a simple truth. The new system isn't designed to free humanity, it's designed to track it. For decades, the old world ran on paper money. Anonymous, tangible, untraceable. It gave people privacy, autonomy, and the illusion of choice. But in the new world, value no longer exists in your wallet, it exists in the cloud. The future currency isn't physical, it's programmable. Every dollar becomes a line of code. Every transaction a data point, every citizen a profile. It's the next evolution of control, where money itself becomes a surveillance tool. The digital dollar will know when, where, and how it's spent. It can expire, be frozen, or be assigned purpose by code. Governments will say it's protection against crime and inflation. Corporations will say it's innovation. But behind the marketing lies the most powerful mechanism of control ever created, a currency that can shape behavior in real time. Imagine a world where stimulus payments are automatically issued, but can only be spent on approved goods. Where savings can be reduced through negative interest, where dissent can be punished not with prison, but with financial invisibility. This is not fiction, it's policy in progress. The world's central banks, from Washington to Beijing, are racing to launch their digital currencies. And the nation that controls the rails of global payment will control the future of power itself. But the shift won't happen overnight. It will come as convenience, faster payments, safer banking, economic inclusion. It will arrive with smiling faces and sleek apps, just as every empire sells its chains as gifts. The digital dollar won't conquer through war. It will conquer through adoption. The reset isn't about destruction, it's about transformation. The old monetary system is being dismantled quietly, and a new one is being assembled in its place. One that merges finance, identity, and data into a single grid of control. The first empire ruled by borders, the second by markets. The next will rule by code. Yet even within this transformation lies an opportunity, because for every centralized system, there exists its opposite: decentralization. Blockchain, digital assets, and the Internet of Value represent the counterforce, a financial rebellion built not on violence, but on verification. It's the choice between control and sovereignty, between programmable money and permissionless freedom. The Great Reset. Phase 2 isn't coming, it's already here. The New World Order isn't built by governments alone. It's built by the networks that process every transaction, every trade, every heartbeat of the global economy. The only question left is simple. When money becomes digital, who will control the code? Welcome to the Digital Dollar Empire. Part 1. The Death of the Old Economy. Every system dies the same way, quietly at first, then all at once. The global economy was never designed to last forever. It was built on expansion, debt, and illusion. For nearly a century, the dollar reigned as the heartbeat of global trade, its pulse echoing through every central bank and balance sheet on Earth. Nations didn't just hold dollars, they worshipped them. But what the world didn't see was the slow decay beneath the surface, an empire of paper trying to survive in a digital age. The death of the old economy didn't begin with a crash. It began with complacency. When the printing press replaced productivity, money lost its anchor. Each financial crisis was patched with more debt. Each bailout postponed the inevitable reckoning. The world became addicted to cheap credit, a drug that numbed nations and inflated illusions. Growth became an illusion of numbers on screens, untethered from reality. Then came 2008, the fracture point. The illusion cracked. Banks failed, trust evaporated, and governments realized the system couldn't be repaired, only re-engineered. So they rewired it. Interest rates fell to zero, money became infinite, and debt became the new currency. The dollar survived, but it was a ghost of its former self, a symbol propped up by faith, not fundamentals. By 2020, the illusion reached its peak. Trillions were conjured from nothing in the name of survival. The supply of money doubled, yet people felt poorer. Inflation returned like a storm long predicted. The cost of everything soared, except wages. The world realized that printing prosperity was just borrowing from the future. The debt clock became a countdown. This is how empires die, not from invasion, but from interest. Every printed dollar dilutes the ones before it. Every bailout deepens the pit. The system didn't collapse because it failed. It collapsed because it worked exactly as designed, to transfer wealth upward until nothing was left to take. The invisible tax of inflation eroded savings, pensions, and stability, one silent percentage at a time. The rich bought assets, the poor paid the bill. The old economy ran on faith that the dollar would always hold, that markets always recover, that central banks could always fix it. But faith is fragile when reality intrudes. When a gallon of milk costs more than an hour of labor, when housing becomes a fantasy, when nations drown in debt too large to repay, the story breaks. And when stories break, systems follow. The death of the old economy isn't chaos, it's correction. The numbers finally caught up to the narrative. Decades of manipulation, speculation, and intervention created an organism too fragile to survive truth. What we're witnessing isn't a collapse, and it's a transformation. The system isn't dying in darkness, it's mutating into light, a new form, digital and absolute. As the dollar weakens, new contenders rise. Central banks, tech giants, and digital networks compete to write the next chapter of value. Nations are testing digital currencies not as innovation, but as insurance, a backup plan for a failing world order. The death of the old economy is the birth cry of the next one. But the architects of this transition aren't mourning. They've been preparing. For decades, they've built the rails, tested the systems, and positioned the institutions. The old economy was a puppet. The new one will be a program. The dollar won't vanish overnight. It will evolve. And when it does, money will no longer be printed. It will be permissioned. This is the quiet funeral of the paper world, a eulogy for cash, coins, and credit. The empire of ink is giving way to the empire of code. And just like every transformation before it, the change will arrive not as chaos, but as convenience. In the next chapter, we'll witness what rises from the ashes, the birth of the digital dollar empire, where money becomes programmable and freedom becomes conditional. Part 2. The rise of the digital dollar empire. When the old world began to crumble, a new one was already waiting in the shadows. The solution to the dollar's decay wasn't resistance. It was reinvention. Out of crisis came opportunity, and from opportunity came control. This was the birth of the digital dollar empire. The shift began quietly, hidden behind bureaucratic language and policy reports. Words like modernization, financial inclusion, and digital transformation echoed through boardrooms and central banks. But behind the jargon, a simple idea took root. If you can't save the system, replace it. The digital dollar promised efficiency. Transactions settled instantly, corruption reduced, taxes automated, crime eliminated. Every problem had a technological solution, and every solution required deeper integration. To the public, it sounded like progress. To the architects, it was power, programmable, traceable, unstoppable. Central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, became the perfect successor to fiat money. The old dollar was blind. It didn't know where it went or what it did. The new one would see everything. Each unit of currency could carry a history: who spent it, where, when, and why. Every transaction would be verified, monitored, and approved within the empire's network. The money itself would obey the system. At first, adoption came through convenience. Government wallets offered instant payments. Stimulus checks arrived faster. Bank fees vanished. The digital dollar felt like an upgrade, a sleek, secure evolution of cash. But beneath the interface, the architecture of surveillance grew stronger. For the first time, money wasn't just a medium of exchange, and it was a medium of control. In this new system, freedom wasn't taken, It was redefined. Every purchase became a data point. Every financial decision became part of a behavioral map. Algorithms could reward or restrict based on compliance, location, or social standing. Need a loan? The Empire's code checks your financial trust score. Want to travel? The system evaluates your digital footprint. One keystroke could erase access, not just to wealth, but to participation itself. The beauty of the design is its subtlety. Control no longer requires coercion, it requires convenience. People don't resist what they enjoy. The Empire doesn't need to confiscate cash if it can convince you not to want it. Paper money becomes obsolete not by law but by design. Businesses stop accepting it. Banks stop holding it. Digital becomes default. Once the rails were built, integration became inevitable. The Federal Reserve worked with private payment giants while international banks coordinated under global frameworks. Ripple, Visa, MasterCard, and SWIFT all tested programmable currency systems. Each claimed neutrality, but all serve the same goal: an interoperable financial grid where money moves instantly and surveillance moves with it. Then came Phase 2, policy alignment. Governments began introducing digital identity systems to link personal information to payment accounts. What began as a login became a key. One ID for every service, every transaction, every citizen. The line between currency and identity dissolved. In the digital dollar empire, who you are is what you spend. Still, the architects knew the transition required patience. The collapse of trust in banks and inflation in markets made people desperate for stability. They didn't need to force adoption. They only needed to wait for chaos. When the next financial shock hits, the digital safety net will be ready. A simple announcement will echo through every screen. Your money is safe. Transfer to your digital wallet. And just like that, the empire will be complete. The digital dollar isn't coming, and it's being normalized. From social credit models in Asia to EU digital IDs and US pilot programs, the infrastructure is live. The future currency is programmable, the ledger immutable, the control total. But there's an irony buried deep within this system. The same technology that enables centralization also enables its opposite, decentralization. The empire's code can be copied, mirrored, and remade. Blockchain doesn't serve only the rulers, it serves whoever understands it. The same rails that track can also free. The same networks that record can also reveal. The digital dollar empire rises on the promise of safety, but safety has a cost: sovereignty. The question is no longer whether this system will exist. It's whether people will accept it blindly or build its counterbalance. In the next chapter, we'll explore that counterforce, the tokenized world where everything becomes money, and the lines between value, identity, and control blur forever. Part 3. The tokenized world. Every revolution begins with a simple idea. For the digital dollar empire, it was control, but for the rebellion rising in its shadow, it was ownership. While governments built programmable currencies, innovators built programmable value. Out of the chaos of inflation, inequality, and mistrust came a new vision. A world where anything of worth could exist as a digital token: money, stocks, art, identity, even ideas. The goal wasn't to destroy the old financial system. It was to bypass it, to replace permission with participation. This is the tokenized world, a place where everything becomes money. It began with Bitcoin, a digital protest against central banks. But Bitcoin was only the spark. The real fire came with tokenization, the ability to take any real-world asset and represent it digitally on a blockchain. Land deeds, bonds, carbon credits, patents, and even gold bars, all mirrored on transparent ledgers transferable in seconds. For the first time, value could move as easily as information. The printing press of finance had arrived. At first, the empire dismissed it. Crypto was chaos, too volatile, too decentralized, too uncontrollable. But when banks began experimenting with tokenized treasuries, when billion-dollar corporations used blockchain for settlements, and when governments started testing central bank assets on distributed ledgers, the tone changed. The empire realized it could not kill the idea, only co-opt it. And so began the quiet war for the soul of tokenization. On one side stood the open networks, XRP Ledger, XDC, Stellar, Algorand, Quant, building the infrastructure for a neutral, interoperable economy. On the other side stood the institutions, central banks, payment giants, and regulators, seeking to absorb the technology into their own walls. What began as a rebellion was becoming assimilation. Tokenization wasn't just a financial innovation. It was a philosophical shift. Ownership itself was being redefined. In the old world, assets were trapped by geography, paperwork, and intermediaries. In the new one, a farmer in Africa could tokenize his land and sell fractional ownership to investors in Tokyo. A small business in Brazil could raise capital without banks. A global liquidity layer was forming, borderless, transparent, instant. The dream of economic equality wasn't utopia anymore, it was math. But every tool of liberation can also become a tool of control. If everything can be tokenized, everything can be tracked. The empire saw the potential, not just for efficiency, but for dominance. Imagine every asset, every resource, every human interaction represented as data. Whoever controls that data doesn't just own the system, they are the system. In a fully tokenized economy, freedom and surveillance become two sides of the same coin. Yet the genie cannot be put back in the bottle. Tokenization is spreading faster than any government can regulate. The infrastructure is global, the code is open, and the participants are millions strong. The world's wealth, estimated at over $900 trillion, is preparing to move on to digital rails. The transition will not be optional, it will be systemic. In this new economy, liquidity is power, and the bridge between worlds, between fiat and digital, between banks and blockchains, is the key. This is where projects like Ripple and its native asset XRP come in. They don't replace currencies, they connect them. They don't destroy the empire, they build the rails beneath it. The same rails that can serve banks can also free individuals. The difference lies in who controls the switch. The tokenized world is not just a new financial system, it's a new civilization. The Internet of Value will make money move like messages, contracts execute automatically, and ownership become fluid. But as we build this new world, the same question that haunted the last one remains. Will it serve humanity or enslave it? Because the moment everything has a price, the value of freedom must be redefined. In the next chapter, we'll step deeper into the architecture of global power, where the new financial grid emerges. Nations, corporations, and blockchains converge into one interoperable network, the machine that moves the world. Part 4. The Global Financial Grid. Every empire in history had an infrastructure. Rome had its roads, Britain its navy, America its dollar. The next empire rules through code. Its highways are digital, its borders invisible, its reach infinite. This is the global financial grid, the invisible network uniting banks, governments, corporations, and blockchains into a single system of programmable value. For decades, global finance was fragmented. Separate payment rails, competing currencies, disconnected systems. But now those walls are coming down. The dream of interoperability is becoming reality. Central banks are linking digital currencies across continents. Institutions are tokenizing assets and settling them on shared ledgers. Trade finance, remittances, securities, and commodities, all syncing into one global database of value. It sounds like progress, and in many ways it is. Instant settlement, real-time liquidity, efficiency on a scale never seen before. But beneath the efficiency lies something far more profound: centralization through connectivity. The grid isn't just about moving money, it's about mapping power. At the heart of the system sits a handful of protocols, ISO 2022 compliant networks designed to standardize global communication between banks and digital assets. Ripple's XRP ledger, Stellar, Quant's Overledger, XDC's hybrid network. Each plays a role in linking old-world finance to the new digital paradigm. Together, they form the plumbing of the Internet of Value, the code beneath civilization's next economy. On the surface, these systems seem neutral, just infrastructure. But whoever controls the rails controls the rules. When every payment, contract, and trade flows through programmable pathways, regulation becomes automation. Policy becomes software, control becomes code. This is the silent unification of money, identity, and authority into one interoperable machine, the grid that never sleeps. In this new architecture, the dollar is no longer the only instrument of power. It becomes one node among many, still influential but shared. The grid isn't American or Chinese or European, it's global. Sovereignty becomes a shared protocol and control shifts from nations to networks. The future of finance won't be governed by presidents or parliaments, but by governance algorithms and consensus validators. The promise is equality, the risk is dependency. The world's economy will soon rely on systems too complex for any single government to manage, too interconnected to fail. And when failure does come, because it always does, it will ripple across every market, every nation, every person. The collapse of one node could become the crisis of all. But the architects see this differently. To them, unification equals stability. The old world of disconnected currencies and delayed settlements was inefficient, costly, and corruptible. The new grid eliminates that chaos. It replaces human error with digital precision, corruption with traceability, politics with protocol. The empire of trust is being replaced by the empire of code. The great irony is that this transformation wasn't forced and it was invited. Every new technology that made life easier also made the grid stronger. Tap-to-pay, digital IDs, instant transfers. Convenience became compliance. Slowly, the network absorbed everything. Now we no longer move through systems, we live inside them. Yet, like every empire before it, the grid carries within it the seeds of its own undoing. The same interoperability that enables control also enables escape. Decentralized finance, peer-to-peer settlements, and privacy networks operate like underground rivers beneath the surface of global liquidity. They don't fight the system, they flow around it. The empire can regulate exchanges, but it can't regulate math. It can monitor data, but it can't stop awareness. The global financial grid represents humanity's greatest technological leap and its greatest test. For the first time, the entire world will share a single economic nervous system. Every transaction a signal, every balance a heartbeat, every human a node. The question is no longer if the system will unite us. It's who will hold the switch when it does. In the final chapter, we'll witness the confrontation between these two realities, the empire of control and the network of freedom. The Great Reset isn't ending, it's choosing sides. Part 5, the people's countermove. Every empire imagines itself eternal, but no empire has ever survived the awakening of its people. As the digital dollar empire rises, a quiet resistance grows beneath it, not with armies or protests, but with awareness. For the first time in history, individuals possess the same tools once reserved for institutions: encryption, blockchain, global communication. The same networks built for control are being rewritten for freedom. The people have learned the empire's language, code. This is the people's countermove. It began with doubt, the realization that inflation, taxation, and surveillance weren't accidents, but mechanisms of dependency. Then came decentralization, the rediscovery that power only exists when it's centralized. Out of this revelation came the great digital migration. Millions leaving traditional finance for crypto, self-custody, and peer-to-peer economies. What started as speculation became something sacred: sovereignty. While governments built CBDCs and programmable money, developers built open-source currencies no one could shut down. Bitcoin showed it was possible. XRP, XLM, XDC, and countless others proved it could be efficient. The Internet of Value became the people's answer to the empire, a network not ruled by borders, banks, or bureaucrats, but by math and consensus. The power of this new system isn't in its price charts, it's in its philosophy. It redefines ownership, identity, and trust. You don't ask permission to send value. You don't need approval to create opportunity. The code itself becomes the law, transparent, incorruptible, fair. It's not the fall of the old world. It's the birth of a parallel one. But the counter-empire faces its own tests. The rulers of the old system understand that open finance threatens their monopoly. They respond not with violence, but with legislation. They call it compliance, safety, consumer protection. Yet every new law tightens the noose. Every restriction disguises fear. The empire doesn't fear crypto's volatility. It fears its independence. Still, every crackdown only strengthens the movement. Decentralized exchanges rise. Privacy protocols advance. Communities organize around purpose instead of profit. The people realize that freedom isn't given, it's built. And block by block, transaction by transaction, the foundation of a new world is forming. The irony is poetic. The same blockchain technology the empire hoped to use for surveillance is becoming the architecture of liberation. Every ledger entry is a record of defiance, proof that truth doesn't need permission. As banks digitize money, the people digitize trust. As governments weaponize code, the people decentralize it. And beneath the surface, something even greater is happening, an awakening of consciousness. People are beginning to see that the real revolution isn't financial or political. It's psychological. The Empire's greatest weapon was never money, it was belief. As soon as people stop believing in the old story, its power dissolves. The moment humanity remembers that it can create its own systems, the reset resets itself. The people's countermove isn't about destroying the system, it's about transcending it. It's about building a world where value flows without permission, where identity isn't owned, and where freedom is measured not in wealth, but in choice. The Empire will continue its march, data, control, automation, but the people will continue building, connecting, evolving. Two systems, one planet, one destiny. The digital dollar empire believes it is one. It controls the infrastructure, the policy, the perception, but what it can't control is the spark, that ancient human instinct for autonomy. Empires can own land, data, and debt, but they can never own awareness. This is how every revolution begins, not with noise, but with knowledge. Not with violence, but with vision. The Great Reset is not the end of freedom. It's the beginning of responsibility. Because in the age of programmable money, the most valuable asset isn't currency, it's consciousness. The choice. Every generation faces a crossroads. Ours is here now. The old world ran on trust in systems. The new world runs on trust in code. But even code is written by people, and people must choose what they serve. The digital dollar empire promises safety, order, and convenience. The decentralized world promises freedom, transparency, and sovereignty. One offers comfort, the other responsibility. The Great Reset isn't a conspiracy, it's a test. It asks each of us, will you live inside a system that defines your choices or build one that reflects your values? Because the future isn't being decided by governments or banks, it's being decided by you. Every transaction, every innovation, every act of awareness is a vote for the kind of world we leave behind. This is the choice, and it's already begun. Subscribe to LTL Productions for more cinematic documentaries exploring power, money, and consciousness in the age of digital transformation. See beyond the system, see the reset, see the truth.